What's going on, everybody? This is Robert. I am the host of two shows called Bridging the Geekdoms and Shootin the Sith. If you're watching this on my Bridging the Geekdoms channel, this is my other show over on Shootin the Sith podcast. You can find that stream, just search Shootin the Sith on YouTube. I also have a podcast, Shootin the Sith, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that fun stuff. Now, yesterday I tried this for the first time where I sat down in my car on my way home and talked Star Wars. I've done this a couple times now, or at least one time for Bridging the Geekdoms. I'm also going to be doing that for Shootin the Sith. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, that's where you're going to find all my Star Wars stuff. So I'm streaming this on Bridging the Geekdoms specifically to just kind of promote it and say, hey, if you're a fan of Bridging the Geekdoms, you'll probably like Shootin the Sith also. It was intended to be a once-a-month show, but there's just so much I'd like to talk about. So today, what I want to talk about is the fandom and how they have perceived and accepted or not accepted the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. Now, a lot of people sit there and, well, you know, they fight and disagree and argue over stupid things. But let's get down to facts, all right? The sequel trilogy, while each movie has its own merits and has its own issues as well, they're not terrible movies by themselves. Now, if you were to put them together as, say, a trilogy, that's where things start to fall apart. And unfortunately, you can't watch, say, The Last Jedi without really seeing The Force Awakens because you have no idea who some of these characters are and where they come from. Now, the problem lies with Lucasfilm more than anything else. Lucasfilm just screwed everything up. I mean, let's be real here. Lucasfilm screwed everything up by not sitting down and truly exploring the idea of a trilogy, what it means to do a Star Wars trilogy, and what it means to the fans who have been a part of that franchise since 1977. That fault falls on Lucasfilm, Kathy Kennedy, and Disney. Bringing on J.J. Abrams was not a bad move for The Force Awakens. He did a phenomenal job in setting up what the trilogy could be. Whether you dislike what has come or what came from it, you know, from being sort of a soft reboot of A New Hope or what have you, regardless of that, it was a solid start to this new trilogy. Rey seemed interesting. She had a mysterious past. Finn, there seemed like there was more to him than anything. And Poe, the hotshot pilot, who was supposed to actually die in The Force Awakens, but was written into more of the story and able to stay, turned out to be a really intriguing character as well. So why does the fandom hate the sequel trilogy so much or dislike? I mean, the prequel trilogy struggled with fans. But there's something different about the sequel trilogy where people just truly despise what came from the sequel trilogy. I don't hate it to the extent of so many others, but I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, it's the best trilogy out of the three, or it's the best three Star Wars movies out of all, what is there, 10 or 11 now? I'm not going to say that at all. But why? Why do people hate this trilogy so much? And it's simple. It's simple. They got away from what Star Wars is. And that is, it was all in George Lucas's head. And that sounds weird to say because, yeah, Star Wars, for the most part, was in Lucas's head. Yeah, you had your expanded universe, which obviously Lucas did not sit down and write every single book, every single comic, every single this, every single that. But he had to sign off on all of it. In some form or fashion, he had to sign off on it. He did not sign off on these stories for the sequel trilogy. Now, you can sit there and say, yeah, well, he sold the company. He had no right to sign off on them. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He sold the company. He sold Lucasfilm. He sold the rights to Star Wars. He gave them to Disney. He has no right, no say in what happens after that point. But that's Disney's fault. They should not have taken the properties without the ability to utilize the creator's vision and ideas. They initially, according to Bob Iger, initially were going to utilize George Lucas as a consultant on the sequel trilogy. They even had his 3-story arc, which he wrote, whether it was hastily or thought out over a number of years, there was a sequel trilogy that he wrote out and had envisioned in some form or fashion. They were going to use that. They brought in Michael Arndt to write the script based off of those outlines. They ended up not using them. They threw them away, scratched it all, for the most part. Rumor has it that some of the characters and some of the ideas were still shown in at least The Force Awakens, but for the most part, it was completely thrown out. It was thrown out in favor to reboot the franchise, to start anew, to start fresh, to bring in a new generation. But they didn't have to do that. That's not what they had to do. All they had to do was follow what Lucas had envisioned. All they had to do was continue the story of Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, R2, 3PO, Lando. But they decided not to do it. Don't get me wrong, my kids. I have 6 kids, 3 of which are Star Wars fans in some form or fashion. The other 3 are kind of too young for it. They enjoy what we got. My son loves Kylo Ren. He loves the arc of Kylo Ren. He thinks he's menacing. He thinks he's just a really cool character. My daughter enjoys Rey. Like she looks at Rey and says, "Wow, like that's cool." But there's nothing in this trilogy that truly connects you to those characters. Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie, Lando, all of them. They've been living with us in our living rooms since the 80s. They've been living in this world since 1977. They are a part of many people's families. Part of many kids' lives. They were of mine. They were friends of mine. I looked at them as friends. I would get home from school on the weekends, Friday night, sit down, click on that television, pop in the VHS of A New Hope, then Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi. Almost every single Friday night when I was a kid. Obviously, when I became a teenager, I did it less frequently because I would actually have stuff to do and go out and do, but that's not the point. The point is, they decided to take an established group of people, group of characters, and push them to the side to try and build new characters, only to then say, you know what, after 3 movies, it's done. We're done. Skywalker Saga's over. Like, come on. Honestly, like, truly think about that for a second. After 3 movies, you're just like, yeah, you know, we established these brand new characters, which 2 of the 3 were vastly underutilized. 2 or 3 of the 4 were vastly underutilized. I mean, get the hell out of here. Come on. That is what is wrong with the sequel trilogy. That is why people were so upset about it. And you have to dig through all of the complaints, all of the mocking of what the sequel trilogy had become and is, to truly see that that is the root of the issue. The root of the issue is they failed to truly continue the Skywalker saga. They then, on episode 9, hastily put something together, a movie together, to try and connect it to the Skywalker saga better than the previous 2 films did. Again, The Force Awakens was not a bad start to the sequel trilogy. In my opinion, if they were going to continue on for, say, a total of 6 movies, it was perfect. Because you set up these new cast of characters, you get Han in there for the movie, you get Leia, and then you introduce Luke at the end, so they carry on forward after that. Makes sense. But the fact that they just ignored the importance of those characters after The Force Awakens just absolutely baffles me. Absolutely just annoys the shit out of me, because the sequel trilogy could have been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, why? Why did they not listen to Lucas? Why did they decide not to go with what Lucas was doing? Well, as I said, it was to build these new cast of characters, these new characters that they, I believe, were hoping to carry the torch for a number of years. But as the sequel trilogy continued to get negative exposure, negative press, while critics enjoyed it, fans were not a big fan of what they were getting. So while that's happening, they decided, you know what, we're just going to end the Skywalker saga here. Episode 9, that's it. Instead of going 10, 11, 12, possibly 13, 14, 15, so on and so forth, now we're done. We're cutting it here. We did what we wanted to do. It's been good. Thanks. See you later. We're going to focus on other things. Really? I mean, come on, guys. Come on. There's no... Unless they didn't have a plan, which they did not. They had no plan. J.J. Abrams came in, wrote a script. Rumor has it that he wrote an outline. People say, oh, that was just Daisy Ridley saying that in an interview. She misspoke, didn't understand. But regardless, if J.J. Abrams did or did not write a script or outline for what was to follow after Episode 7, The Force Awakens, where the hell was their plan? Why did they not have a plan for continuing this story, to build on the Skywalker saga? That's what this is. If they're considering it the Skywalker saga, why not have a plan to say, okay, we need to find either a way to end this saga or to push it forward for the next generation? And they didn't do that. They failed. They failed at it. They didn't plan. For some odd reason, Rian Johnson had the cleanest production of all the Star Wars properties within the Disney era. Meanwhile, his film, while it feels the most Star Wars, it truly does. There's no denying that Rian Johnson understands Star Wars. But it's also the most disconnected from what was being built in the films prior. How does that happen? I'm not a Kathy Kennedy hater. Kathy Kennedy is fantastic. The movies that she's done, her record is phenomenal. She is what is called a super producer. You cannot be denied. She cannot be denied that title. She is phenomenal. But Star Wars, I think it's time somebody takes that out of her reins. They can right this ship. They can. They can say, you know what, we thought we were going to end the Skywalker saga, but we have an amazing idea, which is going to continue on this story and bring all you fans back with an episode 10. I hope it happens. I think it could happen. I think in 5 to 10 years it could happen. However, they tarnished the Skywalker name, ending the Rise of Skywalker as they did. Now, there's a lot of speculation, but there's a lot of rumblings that have come out stating that J.J. Abrams was forced to change his movie in post-production. That Disney execs, that Kathy Kennedy, that somebody did not like the direction in which J.J. took the film. What that means, I don't know. There's a rumored J.J. cut out there. Is there truly a J.J. cut? I guess we'll have to find out. But what's interesting is that every production since Disney has taken over Lucasfilm, every production has had some sort of behind-the-scenes issues You had the George Lucas and rumored JJ issues on The Force Awakens. You know, Tony Gilroy came in to finish. He came in to finish production on Rogue One and the reshoots on Rogue One. You have what happened on Solo. On Solo, Lord and Miller were booted from production. They then had to do massive reshoots, nearly reshoot the entire film to meet their release deadline. Colin Trevorrow was removed from Episode 9 prior to its release, or obviously prior to its release, but removed from Episode 9 due to different take on where the story should go. If you haven't read the leaked script of his, do yourself a favor and read it. Phenomenal script. Some changes here and there needed to be made, obviously, but for the most part, better than what we got from J.J. Abrams. It had to be said. It has to be said. It is what it is. The Mandalorian, now we're hearing there's issues on set there. The Josh Trank Boba Fett movie was canned. The only one that had no issues. Episode 8 by Rian Johnson. The film that is most disconnected from that trilogy. It's really a shame. And Lucasfilm, I do hope that they hear this. I know they probably don't peruse YouTube or podcasts or anything like that. But I want them to hear this because it is very important. You can fix this. This can be right. The ship can be righted. You just have to take care in what you have. Take care in this franchise that has been around since 1977. Talk to George Lucas. Make amends with him. Let's get this ship moving where fans can once again get excited about Star Wars, because the sequel trilogy has taken the wind out of the sails. I remember back in 2012 when the sale was announced. People were excited about the sale. But you know, people were more excited about the fact that we're getting an episode 7. Yeah, there were questions. Oh, Disney's going to ruin it. Disney's going to ruin it. Disney's going to ruin it. But people were excited that we were getting more Star Wars. More so than they had ever been before. So what's the deal? Like, why can they just not get it right? It's because they got away from what Star Wars truly is. And they felt they knew better about what Star Wars was and is and means to the fans. It's a real shame. It's a real shame because there's a lot of stuff there that's exciting and fun, and Star Wars is great. You can't deny it. The High Republic's coming out soon, and I'm excited about it. I'm a little disappointed that it's only in literature and novels and comics and other medias, but I'm hoping that they transition that to, say, video games or movies or TV shows at some point. Some people question, do we need an Obi-Wan Kenobi series? We need to get away from the legacy characters. We need to build more. I disagree. And Disney's getting away from the legacy idea, with the exception of Obi-Wan, because that is something that has been requested for quite some time. But they're starting to move away from the legacy, and I don't think that's a great idea. I think you need to have it going concurrently. You need to have your legacy storylines, characters. You need to have that trilogy saga moving forward after Episode 9. That is what Star Wars is. At the root of everything, Star Wars is the Skywalker saga. Star Wars is the fight of good and evil between Skywalkers, between Jedi and the Sith. That is what it is. It all stems from that. Everything else around it is fun and nice. The Old Republic, the Knights of the Old Republic. What else has there been video game-wise? You know, Dark Forces, Rogue Squadron, all that's fun, but it's all rooted and based off of the saga. I agree that they need to explore other avenues. I want them to. I want to see this universe built. But they can't get away from the Skywalker saga. They can't get away from what that means to people who have been following it for the better part of 45 years. Star Wars is here. Star Wars isn't going anywhere. Fans aren't going anywhere. And unless Disney gets on the ball and actually starts to rectify this, and they can absolutely rectify this, 100%. Hell, there is even a way that they could write off episode 7, 8, 9 and reboot them. People don't want to hear that. People think it's crazy talk, but there is a way for them to do it. I don't know, guys. Do you agree with me? Do you think that is why people have this stigma of the sequel trilogy and why it is received so poorly? Is it because Disney and Lucasfilm at this point did not understand what they had and took for granted the fact that fans wanted something specific? And while they tried to give it to them a little bit, they tried to move in a different direction. They thought they knew better than the fans and then George Lucas. Do you think that's what the problem is? Do you think that's why fans are so against the sequel trilogy? Don't get me wrong, there are people out there who love the sequel trilogy and who have loved what Disney has done. Again, I'm not a hater of the sequel trilogy. I enjoy it to a certain point. Is it as good as I was hoping? No. But I enjoy it to a certain point. And if you check out spoilerverse.com, I believe this coming Monday, I have an article coming out that is how they could slightly fix and alter the ending of the Skywalker saga. Everything else is the same way, all the way up to what happens after the battle of Rey and Palpatine. From that point on, those last, 10, 15 minutes, if they would have made this change, I guarantee you all would have loved the movie. And it would have connected it all together so much more and so much better. So make sure you check out spoilerverse.com. You're not only going to find articles from me, from other people, but you're going to find some amazing podcasts on our network. Polygon Warriors, Bridging the Geekdoms, Shootin the Sith. You got our flagship show, Spoiler Country, who interviews some of the greatest people within the comic book, film, television, music industry. So make sure you check that show out. It is fantastic. But with all that said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that follow button. Find me on the Twitters at @rslavinsky or @Bridge Geekdoms. And with that, may the Force